Recently, I was invited to join a book club in which people are reading one of my books, Awake to What Is. And it's been really heartwarming to just be in this group and see the impact that this book is having on those that are reading it. Each week, we read something and then they reflect on what it is they read. And at the end of it, I reflect on what they shared and on the topic in general. And it's been re-inspiring for me and kind of reminded me, I've written a bunch of books. Like, I forget sometimes that I have, but I have so much in my heart and in my mind that I want to share. And writing is one of the ways, perhaps the primary way, that I've gone about sharing these things. And the chapter that we are currently reading is Compassion. And it's towards the end of the book. And it's something that I included because I think, well, for many reasons, but for me, as I become more awake and aware and present, I recognize more and more this pervasiveness of suffering, the suffering that exists within society, within myself, within the world, with many living beings. There is so much pain, so much anxiety and fear and hurt and despair. And when one is really present to all of that, naturally, I think there is this compassion that awakens in the heart and this feeling like, I want to help the situation. I want to help alleviate the suffering in the world. And there's a recognition that to do so, I need to know how to take care of suffering in myself. The better that I can take care of suffering in myself, the better able I am to really offer assistance to others on their journey. And also, I think one recognizes that a lot of suffering is self-created. It's, we may project it outwardly as if something else is the cause of it, and not to diminish, external circumstances that are challenging, but a lot of times the narratives in our own minds, the stories that we have, the disturbing emotions that we're fixated on, our anger, greed, craving, attachment, all of these mental states or emotions disturb this natural happiness within us and peace that's always available to us. An analogy that's often used is the sky and clouds. Like, the sky is always there, but it can be filled with clouds, and those clouds can veil us from seeing the sky. And the sky is our natural state of awareness, which is inherently free. And that freedom and the experience of that freedom is blissful and joyful and peaceful. So there is this natural peace within us, but we may not recognize that because of all these clouds that veil us from seeing that sky. The clouds being these disturbing emotions of, craving, anger, ignorance, delusion, confusion, whatever they may be. So a lot of the suffering that people experience, they need to transform within themselves because they're creating it in themselves. And you can't necessarily just go and tell someone that's in that suffering, like, hey, you're making all this up, so just stop and you'll be happy. Excuse me. It doesn't really work that way. So by recognizing that in myself, in oneself, that I am creating a lot of my own suffering from my attachments, my expectations, my desires, my frustrations, my judgments, my insecurities, my shame, my guilt, all these things. When I purify and transform those in myself, then I can really be a loving presence in the world, and I can be kind. And that kindness and that loving presence can offer a lot to others and inspire them or help them feel safe enough to open up and maybe start to explore some of those things in themselves, or maybe something I share can help them transform something in their own minds, whatever it may be. So that's why I really focused on this chapter of compassion in here and talk about the skillfulness required to really be of assistance, that compassion, to really be helpful, requires wisdom. There's a need for love and understanding. And I reference an example in here that I think is a good one. And it's from a story from Thich Nhat Hanh, who's someone I'm really inspired by. And he says, so a great example of this comes from a story shared by Buddhist monk and teacher Thich Nhat Hanh. Thai, as many of his students and friends call him, does not like durian, a tropical fruit with a powerful odor. Out of love and kindness, someone offered Thai a durian and placed it on the temple altar, unaware of Thai's dislike for durian. Thai sat in the temple to meditate, but the smell of the durian was so strong that it disturbed his meditation practice, and he felt unable to concentrate until he placed a bowl over the durian to contain its smell. The gesture of offering the durian to Thai was sincere, but it lacked the understanding of what Thai actually likes, and so it caused Thai to suffer rather than bringing him happiness. This story is an example of love without understanding. We want to always manifest the highest possible good in any situation and make another being's experience lighter if we can. To do this requires both that we have a compassionate heart and a wise understanding of the situation we are in. It requires skill. In fact, the Mahayana Buddhists call this art upaya, or skillful means, which involves using one's own methods or techniques to fit a situation so that one may help another being gain insight. So that skillful means is a concept I've been inspired by, and it's something that I think comes really just through presence and leading with our heart. When we're really present with someone, when our heart is open and we're listening and we're curious and we're here, that presence and curiosity naturally helps us better understand the person, the situation, and informs us in what's the best way to act. So I started this video actually wanting to read a passage from this book that wasn't that one, but then I just went on this kind of natural share about compassion. So I'm going to read this part here because I think it's also really helpful and relevant when it comes to being a compassionate being in the world. If you feel this compassion in your heart and you want to try to help, help alleviate suffering, it can be challenging because the suffering can be so immense in a person or in the world, and it can feel overwhelming to be in contact with such immense or intense forms of suffering. So this section that I wrote here is titled Caring for Suffering Without Being Overwhelmed. And I write, as we awaken to the reality of suffering and acknowledge the tremendous suffering that exists in the world, we may initially feel quite overwhelmed. This may cause us to also suffer greatly, and it may prevent us from feeling able to act. Thich Nhat Hanh has a beautiful story about this very thing that I find to be helpful. Someone asked me, "Aren't you worried about the state of the world?" I allowed myself to breathe, and then I said, "What is most important is not to allow your anxiety about what happens in the world to fill your heart. If your heart is filled with anxiety, you will get sick, and you will not be able to help. Yes, there is tremendous suffering all over the world, but knowing this need not paralyze us. If we practice mindful breathing, mindful walking, mindful sitting, and working in mindfulness, we can try our best to help." So that's the quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, and I go on to say, we are, each of us, capable of relieving the suffering of another without joining in or being overwhelmed by that suffering. It is possible to be one with the suffering of others, yet still feel light and joyful. It is possible, but not always easy. If we do not have peace within us, we will be overwhelmed by the pain and suffering of others. Not only will this cause us to suffer, but it will prevent us from truly being capable of relieving others from their suffering. How can we truly care for another's suffering if we are not able to care for our own suffering? Thai has another wonderful story that is relevant here. When I was a novice, I could not understand why, if the world is filled with suffering, the Buddha has such a beautiful smile. Why isn't he disturbed by all the suffering? Later, I discovered that the Buddha has enough understanding, calm, and strength. That is why the suffering does not overwhelm him. He is able to smile to suffering because he knows how to take care of it and to help transform it. We need to be aware of the suffering, but retain our clarity, calmness, and strength so we can help transform the situation. The ocean of tears cannot drown us if compassion is there. That is why the Buddha's smile is possible. Such a beautiful, beautiful passage. So then I finished this chapter saying, through practicing mindfulness, we begin to heal our own suffering. As we do, we become capable of opening up to the suffering of others and being able to care for it without being overwhelmed. There is a lot of suffering in the world today, and all of us should recognize this and act towards peace. However, the majority of suffering on the earth right now is the result of human activity. Our actions stem from our thinking and way of perceiving. By transforming our perception of life, we change our relationship to life, and we change how we live our lives. We cannot overlook our own suffering. By healing ourselves, we help to heal the world. By finding peace and love within, we become truly capable of creating peace and love without. And I think that really is the best way that we can help alleviate suffering in the world, is to recognize the suffering within ourselves and learn how to take care of our own suffering. When I know how to take care of my anger, I know how to really be more present and help to take care of anger outside of me in the form of someone else or in society. When I know how to take care of the anxiety within me, I know how to be a presence that can help alleviate anxiety in others. And again, in many cases, the best thing that we can do is just be that loving presence, just be that open hand. But it's up to another person, whether they transform their own anxiety, whether they, reach out to grab that hand, or, are able to transform what's going on within their own minds. We can't transform someone else's mind, but we can be a loving presence. We can transform things in our own minds, so then we can know how to offer some kind of wisdom or guidance or insight that may help someone in their journey of transforming their own minds. And really, I think all of the main problems in the world today, whether it be war, violence, pollution, economy, all of these things in society, they're all byproducts or reflections of the human mind, of what's going on in our minds and our hearts. And so transforming those things, the greed, the violence, the anger, the hatred, the judgment, the injustice, all of those things that are within our own minds, transforming those is into peace, happiness, love, compassion, kindness, these more positive qualities. That's what's going to create actual change at a root level. But that has to happen within one's own mind. So there are these collective problems that are happening in the world, but they are the collective result of our collective way of thinking and perceiving. So really what's needed is a transformation of the individual mind and heart on a collective level. So that's really up to each one of us to do that for ourselves and to then be a loving presence in the world. And I really think that love is such a powerful force that even just a small act of love, a small act of kindness can have such a powerful effect in the world, in society, because it's going against the grain of, well, my phone ran out of storage, so I had to delete some videos to finish my final thought here. That, when there's this force of love in the world, it goes against the grain of anger, violence, separation, and things that further perpetuate this suffering in the world. It's going towards more love, which is really healing in ourselves and in the world. So when we bring love to our own suffering, it helps transform it. When we bring love to the suffering of the world, it helps transform it. So I'll end with that there, because I know Instagram videos end at 15 minutes. But yeah, that's a reflection that came from, visiting my own book, which is interesting. But I also wanted to share this because I put a lot of my heart and soul into this book, Awake to What Is. So if you want to learn more about all this stuff, you can check out this book. Thanks for watching.